This is the last in the Broken Earth trilogy, Stone Sky. As usual, we are awarding creativity points. This is the way the world ends. And this trilogy. Find out on this exciting episode how angry we got on if it ended. Welcome back, Paolo.
Welcome back.
I'm happy we've managed to finish this trilogy of books. I'm very proud of us.
I mean, it wasn't a hard read and it was not that long, so...
That's absolutely true. I wanted to say in general that I'm proud that we kept up not only reading at the same time, but also actually finished series, because I feel like not many podcasts or like shows or reviews or all these like kind of shows, they always do like a thing and then they just don't bother with the rest.
So that's true.
I'm happy we complete things.
Yes.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, it usually bothers me not to complete something.
Yeah, I just want to say I appreciate that because I was a bit worried if we can manage. We did it!
Yeah, we did it.
And on this episode we're going to look on the last book of the Broken Earth trilogy, and we've decided on the next episode to also do like a trilogy in general, the whole thing. So this episode gonna be just our views on the last book in general, like very shortly. If you're deciding if you wanna finish it up and read the last one, and then the usual recap and thoughts. We have a lot of things to say. Pablo said he was very angry in the shower today, so I'm excited what he's got to say.
How's that for a mental image?
Yep. I imagine you like in the shower in the morning.
Yeah.
So let's get into just quickly like general thoughts about the last book. So I liked it. I don't regret I read it, but I think it was somehow not greater than the sum of its parts. That's how I would describe it.
In my case, I have to say like the third book was a big step up from the second. And in general, like I enjoyed the read much more than the second book.
Much more happened.
Not just for that, I think like it was much more interesting for a lot of different things. I feel like there were some really nice chapters about the evolution of a few characters. I'll talk about that later, but there was one chapter in particular which really, really struck me in a way which I didn't expect.
Another thing I want to say is inevitable. It always happens in like wrapping up stories. I felt like there were so many things that didn't go anywhere. They didn't have to be there. I don't like miss them, but I was sad that they weren't there. I'll tell you in the spoilers.
Yeah, we will talk about it later.
And there were so many small things that I wish they were just commented on to wrap them up.
I completely agree. In general, I feel there was a big need for either longer books or one more book. I will talk about this again more in the next podcast, because this connects to one of my main criticisms about the books, which is not really like plot lines which are left unsolved. I agree with you. There were a few things where I really wanted to know more. That kind of left me a little unsatisfied, because I feel like the author brought herself into a corner with a couple of situations and she didn't know how to solve them, so she just said, yeah, this happened, but we're not sure how it happened. I'm like, that's very lazy writing. But in general, I feel this book, even more than the second one and almost as much as the first one, really made me appreciate the setting, the world, and the world building.
The setting is all definitely the best.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's all about like the general thoughts. I just want to say that all the elements of it I really, really like. I don't regret reading it at all. And the ending, I was expecting kind of like that, but also not. And I also was like kind of like disappointed and not disappointed. And I like really liked it and I really didn't like it. It's a very weird thing for me. Because I appreciate how they have a more of a feminine or women's point of view. Many of the characters are women and they are idiots sometimes, and we talked about how we hate the main character and how she's like aggressive and dumb and she like kills a bunch of people and all this, but she does it in a very different way, which is very refreshing to me in stories. Like usually, like, you know, the macho guy just doesn't give a crap and he just kills everybody and murders them, and this is more somehow real, if it makes sense. Like she has a like fit of anger, and she doesn't do it to. I don't even know how to describe this. I like that part. I think her character, how I hate her, is a very original kind of hate.
I have a lot to say about.
Yes, we will definitely talk about it. So that connects to the ending, and I was very interested how this is gonna end. And I think it ended very underwhelmingly, and at the same time in a very good way, in the sense of this is what the story should end like, and not like the Hollywood way. So it didn't end like the spectacular Hollywood way, which I appreciate.
Okay, I'm with you that like the final sequence was very much, I don't want to say anticlimactic, like it wasn't as showy as it could have been.
Exactly, that's what I mean.
I agree that that was a very, very good thing. For the ending itself, personally, I could see it coming from the ending of the second book. Like to me, it was kind of obvious how it would finish. I was left wanting for an epilogue. I feel like the ending, like it was a very neat ending to the story of the main character, but only that. Everything else was kind of just finished.
I don't mind it. I think it's better than to drag it out sometimes. Because I'm still sour from the Three Body Problem trilogy, 700 endings like in the last book, so I'm happy this one ended at a good time.
That's true.
Also, the pacing was good. I like the pacing in the book.
I didn't.
Okay.
I felt that some of the chapters had an extremely slow rhythm, an extremely slow pace, for no real reason. And some of the other chapters were a little bit rushed. They were kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, now this is happening, and now this is happening, and now this is happening. Okay. I mean, especially the last chapter, like, I mean, I like the fact that the pace was very, very high in the last chapter. That's great. But at the same time, so many things were crammed into the last chapter. And then if you look at some of the earliest chapter, or like, again, the second book, which was my biggest complaint. Like in the second book, basically nothing happens until the end. And so many of the things that happen at the beginning of the third book could have happened in the second book. And that would have left like more time in the third book to explore some different things, which are kind of like left unexplored or rushed.
It's a very subjective thing to say nothing's happening, because the point of the story or the chapter might just be something else, like we argued during the last episode. So I felt like she was trying to show something, be it the emotions, the characters, the problems, the thought process, and not necessarily the plot, like the things that happen. And that's always a thing in books. It's things that doesn't happen with movies. It's just like you either don't mind it, or it's always slow in books, I feel like.
It is true that the focus is much more on the feelings of characters than like the plot itself. Because some of the plot lines, if you just want to talk about like the events, I mean, in the first book, I feel like it's probably the most eventful book. Like in the first book, a lot of things happen in each of the plot lines. In the second and third books, if you just want to like summarize the plot lines, almost nothing happens in the second book, and in the third book,
yes.
I mean, yeah, things happen, but very few of them. And at one point, even in the book, it says, you know, yeah, we could talk about this thing, but yeah, no, let's just skip forward. Like, yeah, 2 months have passed, and now we are here. And I don't say it like necessarily in a negative way. Like, it's okay. The focus, as you said, was more on other aspects of the story, which is fine. But I wish it would be done a little bit better.
I wouldn't mind there to be much more plot, yes. I agree. Okay, so would you recommend this to people who read the first two books?
Yeah, of course. I mean, if you read the first two books, like, it would be silly not to read the third one. Yeah. Unless you absolutely hated the second one, but...
If you haven't given up after the first one, now it's not the time to give up.
Yeah.
Yes. So definitely finish reading this.
Yeah, that's the same usually with most trilogies. Like, if you read the first two, like, not reading the third one, it's kind of odd.
Okay. Right, so let's move on to spoilers. And if you're reading this, please stop listening. Come back after you've read the book. We recommend it. It's it's worth it.
Yeah.
A very, very short recap from the last book, where we stand after the second book. So, like Pablo just said, nothing happened. So as soon the mom got stuck in Castrima, and at the end of the book killed loads of people, and didn't give any fucks about anybody.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Nasun, her daughter, traveled with her father to this place. Is it Antarctic?
Yeah, to the
Jekiti?
she went to the Antarctics to Jekiti.
So that's a place where the Guardians gather up all these origin, like magic children, and they try to train them. And she kills her father at the end of the second book, or is it correct?
Yeah. The last chapter,
sure.
the last Nasun's chapter of the second book is her killing her father. And the third book starts immediately after the chapter.
Exactly. During the second book, her father was just breaking our hearts, being the worst parent imaginable, worst dad of the year award. And she tried to like make it work somehow, and didn't work out at all, and he just couldn't. And then she ended up killing him. Yeah. Meanwhile, Shafa is resurrected, half-brain dead, super zombie, and has like really super strength, and murders people with his hands like nothing.
Yeah, the first,
so that's
the
what
first
happened
chapter
in the
is
second book.
super
Yeah,
gruesome.
that's yes, exactly what to say. Yeah, that was so shocking. So that's about what happened in the previous book. We discussed in depth how in my opinion, it worked well with the racial tension and like oppression stuff. Let's not get into that again. We'll talk about it more in the trilogy, I guess, discussion.
Yes, we will.
But like Paolo said, the next book starts right away, right the next step. So after Nasun kills the father, the two guardians in the place, they attack her, and Shafa just butchers them. Like
the other one
like,
was killed by the Stone Eater.
Oh yeah. So there's a Stone Eater called Steel. He's working with Nasun because he wants her to do things, and Shafa shoves his forefinger or something, like the index finger, into the other guardian's throat or something.
Yeah, because he had to take out the core stone. Yeah, from the back of her neck.
Yes, we learned the Guardians have a core stone which is connected somehow magically, and that's what gives them the magical powers and to be super powered.
This was a very, very cool chapter. I really liked it. Only later, there was one thing which... it didn't bother me about this chapter, but more about the overall role of the Stone Eaters, because Steel kills a Guardian very easily. And these are the crazy powerful Guardians who have given up their mind to the earth, so... are even stronger than normal Guardians. At the end of the second book, Essen was about to be killed by a Guardian, and Hoa did absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I don't get these. I guess my explanation is that Guardians, the Stone Eaters, they are just out of it.
But Hoa
they talk
tries
about
to save
time.
Essen all the time.
Yeah.
That time, he is like, I could kill this Guardian, and it would take me 2 seconds, but, I could also do nothing. Well, I mean, to be fair, he didn't do nothing. He brought Essen back inside Castrima, but that doesn't save her. That was kind of inexplicable.
Yeah, this decisions of Stone Eaters and what they do and don't get in many scenes. I will talk about it at the end. I guess I'm very confused about them.
I am.
But anyway, so the Guardians get murderated, which I meant to say I like these random I don't expect stuff like in the first book all the sex, and in this book all this gore. So I was like, okay, it's kind of interesting. In a book that's kind of a fantasy sci-fi, there's like a flash of something like horror, and then there's this porn scene, and there's I was like, why is it here? But I kind of started to like it, so I was excited to see what's gonna happen. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, so I appreciate it. So we get 3 storylines again. So one of the storyline is Nasun with Shafa. They travel away from this murder place. Yes. And then we get Esun, the mother, with the Castrima community. They leave the destroyed Com, the place where they used to live, and they travel across the wasteland to a place where they could survive. And the final plot line or the storyline we get is a flashback in the past to a place called
Well, I call it Sil Anagis. I don't know if that's the right pronunciation. If it's not, I'm sorry.
Okay. So this is like the origin of the Stone Eaters and...
the end of the world.
I quote Pablo, potentially most interesting part.
Yes.
Which I didn't like reading like very much.
Okay, yes. I wanted to talk about this so much. So because I think this was really interesting because it's finally revealing some of the biggest secrets like within the lore of this world, and something that has been teased since the beginning, like since the like basically the start of the first book.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, this is what I want to see. We're very excited to see this.
Exactly. Like I remember, like at the very, very beginning of the first book, Alabaster says to Amethyst, he says like, "Oh, did you know that the first Stone Lords was actually written in real stone?" And then he says, "Oh, but you were probably there to see it." And now finally, we get to explore all of this. This is the part where I wish some of this either was in the second book or it was written with a better pace, because I think the first few chapters, because it doesn't have so many pages, it kind of has to cram some of the information about this world and about these tuners, so the children who will end up becoming the first Stone Eaters. But at the same time, it also wants to, because it wants to show, how they become like self-aware, basically. They go on this stupid quest, like going to a museum and other places, which felt like kind of like, is this interesting? Like, they are going to this museum.
Yeah, it wasn't interesting.
Should I care?
It wasn't at all.
And like the pace was really, really slow.
Yes.
It left me kind of perplexed, because like every time there was a Silanagist chapter, most of me was super excited, because I was like, oh, finally I can get to know more about this lore. Finally, maybe this thing this point will be revealed. But then there were also so many things where they were like, now they are tired because they are not used to walking. Okay. Sure.
It was weird and boring and dragged out, and I was
it would have been interesting because like from the beginning, that these chapters are here only for the lore. Like, you're not here to care about these characters, because these characters are not really part of the story. Like, this is just a backstory for the world and for Hoa. So you're not really here to care about these characters because you want to know more about them as characters, but more about their role in the lore. And instead it keeps giving you things about them as characters, and you're like, yeah, but like, okay, you're presenting me these characters, but then like I already know like this is like God knows how long in the past, so it's not really relevant. And I'm sure that lots of people don't really care. It did bother me a little bit.
I didn't look forward to it, and I didn't enjoy it, and it was like, another Silanagist chapter. That's how
I was always happy. Every time I was happy, and not every time I was disappointed. Some of the chapters, like some of the later chapters, were really nice. But yeah, the earlier chapters were like...
The earlier chapter, I was super excited. Like, especially I want to mention Killenly or Kellenly.
Yeah, Kellenly. Yes.
Yeah, so she comes up and she's like this super badass, and what does the name mean? And the name means, real name means deep stab, breach of sweat bust, salt, silicide, underlayer reverberation. And I was like, awesome, who is this? More of her, please. And then nothing happened with her, or why was she so important?
No, she was really important. Like in the ending, like it was explained why she was so important.
Okay.
Because essentially she's the mother of all the origins, and probably the mother of Shafa.
Oh, okay.
Although this is kind of a plot point. Okay, so I want to talk about this just for a second, because I already asked Philip about this, because I don't know if I'm dumb, if I skip the page, what happened. Towards the end of these chapters, when the destruction of the world is about to happen, Hoa mentions that Kellenly is about to have a child. She says Kellenly's son. But that was literally the first time this was mentioned, and I don't know if I missed the point where like she was revealed to be pregnant, and I'm guessing the father is the guy.
I don't think you can guess.
Well, I mean, because
I don't.
Okay, the only reason why I'm guessing that is in the second book, Shafa was dreaming of his parents. And if you look at the description of his parents, they look like Kalenli and the Guardian. So I kept thinking, okay, so I guess the son could be Shafa, because also the guy, the potential father, like it's clearly described in a very, very similar way to Shafa, to the point at which Hoa says, like, this is not who you think he is, although, basically he looks like him. So he says, this is not Shafa, but he looks like Shafa. And Shafa in his dreams sees a mother which looks kind of like Kalenli, and he says, if one of my parents was an origin, I think it was her. So I guess Shafa is the son, but when did Hoa get to know that? Like, when did this happen? First point.
They don't get into it at all.
And second point, Shafa says he remembers the moon. Okay? But we get to know that the first Guardians were created when the moon was thrown out of the orbit. And he was not one of the first Guardians. Like, Steele, says that. He says he's not one of the first Guardians, they're all dead. And also, this is also confirmed by the fact that Shafa remembers, like, the surgery that got him the core stone, and that was in Warrant. And Warrant was built after, the Guardians, the first generation of Guardians came back from the moon. So, if Shafa was born to Kalenli, and he was not born yet when the whole shattering happened, then how can he remember the moon if the moon was thrown out of the orbit? Like, the only explanation would be that Shafa was already born before the shattering. Before the shattering, before the moon accident, which means that when they meet Kalenli already had a child, like, and he was already born, and where was he? Like, none of this makes sense. I mean, I don't want to say it doesn't. It can make sense. It's just that none of this is explained at all.
Yeah, it's about
and it left me extremely confused.
Yeah, I didn't even think about any of this. I was like, okay, another person in the story is pregnant, nobody cares. I turned out to know. Essen's pregnant, nobody cares. Kalenli's pregnant, nobody cares. Let's not talk about it.
The reason why I care so much is Shafa was probably the most interesting character in the story, and I really, really wish his perspective and his memories and his story would have been explored more. And so when, I started to match, like, this guy really looks like Shafa, and this woman really looks like the woman he sees in his dreams, I was really hoping, that, like, that point would be touched upon again. And instead it's just abandoned completely. And then it just says, Kalenli has a son. What? Why? When did Hoa notice that? How did this happen? And again, maybe there is like a clear point I just didn't notice because I'm dumb. It's possible, but I don't know. I'm just so confused.
It's something I completely missed. So thanks for telling me all these details. I guess I was too tired of reading it too quickly. So Kalenli is supposed to be like the first person with the ability to control the magic, or? Yeah,
she was the first version of the tuners. Kalenli was made, like, as a normal person, like she grew up as a normal child, and she didn't even know who she was. Gallat, like the guy he was living with, didn't know she was an experiment.
Yeah, it was like these sections I was kind of like out of it a bit because it was, like you said, so slow, and I completely missed this, so I'm glad you explained it. So the plot line of this flashback is that they are having this advanced society which is based on technology and magic merged together somehow, and they're making these obelisks that we learned about, like storage of power and stuff, and they want more and more power, so they're building this engine, and the engine's supposed to harness the power from the core of the earth and have like infinite source of power, and then that's all gonna be fine and dandy, and they're gonna have a super society with a lot of energy at their disposal.
Yes.
That's basically this plot line. So, meanwhile, the other plot lines, Nasun and Shafa, they keep traveling somewhere, and Shafa, because he's half brain dead, he doesn't really know where he's going. And also, before they leave, all these other children from the Jakiti place, they have nowhere to go, and the people who hate origins and are terrible racists, they don't want the children, and they're happy for the children to leave. And we get this heartbreaking scene when all these children are left alone.
Yeah, and Shafa tells them to kill someone, making them scream as much as possible.
Yeah. So at first Shafa wants to kill them, and Nasun basically makes him not kill them. And then he's like, yeah, we should have killed them because now they're gonna be just fucked, and we're just gonna like let them suffer and have a horrible life because nobody's gonna accept them in anything because the world is ending and the apocalypse and nobody has food and nothing, and nobody wants these magic people in their place because they could just destroy everything by accident, especially children. They cannot control it. And then he tells them, okay, so you get into somebody's house and you kill them, and that's how you survive. So it was kind of grim. And then they're never heard of again. I was so sad about this.
Yes, exactly. Okay, this is like my next point. Okay, so we learn a little about these children in the second book, and we learn a little bit more in this third book, and then they go away, and
I was so sad.
That's it. Bye bye.
I want to hear about them. Even if
that's why I mentioned why there was no epilogue. Just to say, oh, this is what happened to these children. They all died.
Yes.
It could have been like they all died. They met a homeless band the day after, and they all died. I would have been fine, but just telling nothing. Okay, then why did you make them survive?
I was expecting Esun, the mom, while they were traveling with the com. I was expecting them to somehow meet or something happen. And I was expecting like her to make a choice, have to make a choice like, do I save these children or do I save the people I've been living with? And of course she's going to choose the children and kill more people or something like that. I was expecting that to happen and didn't happen at all.
Also, Nasun doesn't want them to die, okay? But at this point she has already decided she wants to destroy the world.
Yeah, we didn't say that.
So... what? Why? Why do you want them to live? Like to live one more month before you destroy the world? Also, she has already killed all of the Origins who had done absolutely nothing to her at the Fulcrum. And she says, because like the Fulcrum was bad and blah, blah, blah. Okay, I understand that, but then she doesn't want to kill them. But it's okay. I guess like she's kind of like hypocritical or like...
Also, she's 10 years old or something.
Yeah, not consistent with her decisions. That's fine, but it was kind of strange. Like, you're literally going to destroy the world. Why are you caring so much about...
This is exactly a question I had for you. Did you feel like it was nonsense? Or did you feel like it was kind of realistic in the sense of she is just too young, too messed up, too just all over the place, and that kind of makes sense why she's making all these bad decisions? So, do you feel like that's okay, or was it, like, bothering you?
I was kind of okay. Like, to be honest, despite this... I was mainly okay with Nasun's character. There was only one point which was just incomprehensible to me, which is, so several times it seems like her relationship to Steel is kind of temporary allies, just because, they both want something that the other can offer, but at the same time, they both want to take advantage of the other, but they don't want to do what the other wants them to do. Okay, but then it's revealed that what Steel wanted was to destroy the planet, and what Nasun wants is to destroy the planet. And Nasun says, I will not lose to you, I will not do what you want, I will do what I want. But that's literally the same thing. Like from the beginning it was literally the same thing. Why? And I'm not saying like she should have trusted Steel. I understand Steel was kind of an asshole and everything else. Okay, fine, whatever. But
yes, that's a good point.
I was so confused by this.
Yeah, it was strange. I don't. Yeah, I guess it was just to show that we shouldn't trust Dominitas because we don't know anything, and it's like
don't trust strangers.
Yeah, I guess it's weird. So I was like on the edge. I didn't know if I hated it or like it, or if it's like correctly realistic how she behaved. I guess I'm okay with it too. I guess it makes sense based on what happened to her. Yeah, so she goes on. Also, I want to mention she gets like a super obelisk, super crystal, super sword somehow randomly, and then
which
it's never
then
mentioned
disappears.
Again. What the fuck?
No, it's the sapphire. It's the sapphire which then goes back to being like a normal obelisk. I just don't see the point of the obelisk becoming
Yeah, I don't
kind of
understand
like
this.
weapons.
I was like, why is there
5
suddenly a
seconds.
superpower sword? And the same with like Alabaster had the sword, and then Esun took it, and then she like turned somebody into stone with the sword. It was super awesome, and then never mentioned again. Where is the sword? So they're so disappointed.
Yeah, it's the amethyst. Like it goes back to being a normal obelisk, but I don't see the point in that happening.
But I thought the obelisk is like giant.
Yeah, but it can like become kind of like a sort of.
Oh, I didn't understand it at all. I thought it was like something completely different.
No.
But it was like a small version of like a shard of the obelisk or something.
No. Like the obelisk shrinks and becomes this sort of sword.
I didn't get that it shrinks.
But like it's completely pointless. That's the thing. I thought they would use it like to do something. I thought like maybe when they get to like the activation mechanism of something, she has to turn the obelisk into like some key or something and put it inside.
Oh, I thought it was a metaphor, not a literal key.
That's what I was expecting, but that's not what happens. Like she has the thing. She has the thing for a second when like she kills her father and then fights the guardians. Then it goes back to being the normal Sapphire, and that's it.
It was so weird. Like why was okay? So that was like so many of these like small things that disappeared. I was disappointed, but in the end it didn't matter. So I was like, okay. So they keep traveling somewhere. Children are gone. Shafa is confused, and he like remembers a little bit something, and then they don't know where they're going, and they go into this like underground place, and he's like, I feel like we should be here because I come here, and then they go underground, and they have to activate this super mechanism, and it's all this like stuff, and then they have this funny name of this vehicle called Vehimel, which is funny to me. So they get on this Vehimel, and it takes them to the core point, which is the place where all the Stone Eaters live, and where they can just do something with the moon. That's like where it's going to happen.
First, on the way to core point, so they go through the center of the Earth, and the Earth kind of mindfucks Shafa. So
murders them.
Like Shafa becomes like a potted plant, essentially.
Yep. So the Earth thing I want to talk about, the Father Earth, I was very interested in, and I was sure it was gonna be terrible. I was sure because it's revealed that we have these teams, basically. Team A, destroy humanity. Team B, save humanity and live in peace. Team C, I'm Father Earth, fuck you all. And Father Earth, I was like, is this like a being actually living in the core of the Earth? Right. Is it actually Earth? And they keep explaining how things made of energy and magic and stuff, they have like this own consciousness and willpower, which was kind of suggested. And then that means that the most concentrated source of power, the core of the Earth, actually is kind of sentient. And I was so sure it's gonna be dumb. Was it dumb?
I liked the idea that, because it was such a massive concentration of energy, it became sentient, and it decided, I don't like humans because they want to use me and everything else. I really like that. I think it was an interesting way to present it, and I think it was
I agree.
a good idea. It was coherent with the rest of the world and everything else. What I didn't like was only one point, which is no one knew about this. Until the shattering, no one knew about this. And yet, it's presented as this insane crime for Silanagists to try to collect the energy from the center of the Earth. Which I understand, like it's a metaphor for like environmentalism in the real world, but like think about it, like if you don't know the Earth is a real thing, and you just know that at the center of the Earth there is a almost endless source of energy, why is it a crime to collect it? I don't understand. It's like
because
if you say...
it doesn't like it.
It's as if you tell me, like, oh, well, if we use solar power, well, maybe the sun doesn't like it. What?
I guess there's a difference to be made between using excess energy and sucking it dry of energy.
Yeah, but it's like if you say, well, I boil water to cook my pasta, then I don't know, the god of water will get angry. Like, what the fuck? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
It was like super on the nose.
I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense why, like, if this thing is conscious, it makes sense that it will get angry. Like, of course, I completely understand that, but from the point of view of Silanagists, like, they didn't know that, so why would it be a crime? Like, what's the bad thing in that.
The only answer I have is the environmentalism and the message that you shouldn't be messing with stuff you don't know. And yeah, but you're right. I just want to say that so somehow it worked for me. I didn't feel like it was dumb, and I liked how the Father Earth talks. That you don't hear him, but you feel him in your sesipene, whatever, in your brain, magic sensors, and it reverberates in your body.
Yeah, I like that too. Again, I feel like it could have been super dumb, and it wasn't. I think it was
exactly.
It was very well explained.
I was very surprised about that, and very well written God in the center of the earth. I was very, very amused.
Yes,
it was cool. So after they go past Father Earth, there's like a dramatic scene, like Pavel said, that Shafa is turned into a vegetable because he's got the core stone. He's got corn in his face, and. So Nasun wants to help Shafa, so she wants to like take out the core stone, which Father Earth uses to put power into people or control people or like manipulate people, but the core of the earth is so super powerful that she cannot do anything. And when they emerge on the other side after this crazy ride in a vehicle and talking to the god of earth himself, she just it's just completely devastated. She just like drags Shafa's limp body on the floor, and Stone Eaters are like watching her, and it's like this would be, I imagine, the coolest moment in the movie if they make this into a TV show or something. This whole thing. I
think Core Point would be a very, very interesting place if made into a movie or like TV shows.
All felt very like fresh, this whole story and setting. Haven't really seen anything similar before.
Yeah, as I said before, Shafa was kind of my favorite character throughout the 3 books. I was really expecting Shafa to be kind of like the final obstacle for either Esun or Nasun or both, and be kind of like the final enemy. Yeah. I really appreciated that she didn't go for that. Like, Shafa in the end, like, basically ends up being almost as a positive character. Because I remember, like, in the second book, in the first Shafa character, the narrator telling the reader, this is not the Shafa of the first book anymore. This is another Shafa. It's another character.
Okay.
Please don't say that it's the same character. No. That's not good. It's another character. You know, they have 2 different action figures and 2 different profiles on the Wikipedia.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate it too.
So I like how, in the end, essentially is genuinely like kind of like a good guy. He really cared about Nasun, and Seal says that he actually cared about all of the origins he had under his care during his years, even though, I mean, he still did like a lot of terrible things.
Yep. Yeah, Shafa is definitely the best character, I would think. It's pretty cool, and that's what I meant at the beginning. I was saying that it's not like a macho ending and stuff. The same applies to this character. It's more of a feminine look on the world, because if a man wrote this, I would imagine there would definitely be a fight, Nasun and Shafa versus Esun, and everybody's like throwing glass knives and cutting off fingers, and it's a very different point of view to conflict, which I appreciated very much.
I completely agree. I like the fact that she didn't go for the Hollywood ending, as you said. That was really appreciated.
Yeah. So in the meantime, Esun and Kastrima Kom are traveling through the wasteland and dying, and nobody has food, and everybody's got blisters on their feet, and they're dried out, and so this drama. And
they're becoming cannibals.
So I was expecting there to be some kind of a confrontation, which we finally got while they travel. So something had to be happening on their way. And it finally felt like the apocalypse. The previous books didn't feel that much to me. Like, it was bad, but now it's really bad. Like, finally, it feels like the world's really ending. And they meet this plane of nothing, and there's like a trap set up, and they're like, this is obviously a trap, let's go in there. So it turns out that the people trying to ambush them and steal their food is a group of people led by Esun's old friend from school.
Yes. Her childhood friend. So
it's one of the guys.
Well, it is like her childhood bully more than friend, but... Yeah.
Oh, it was a bully. I forgot it was a bully. But never mind. So they knew each other when they were practicing as children, training to be Origins at the Fulcrum. And they reunite, and she makes Hyarka and Ika accept him and his people into the community. because he's on Origin 2 and he can help.
Yes, and something horrible happened to him, and it's clearly kind of inferred that some of the Guardians or whatever, Fulcrum, cut his legs and burned his face or whatever. But then he says, Essen asks him, so what happened to you? And he says, maybe it's better if we don't talk about that. Which again is super lazy writing for saying, I want to make this character like just a character who went through some shit, but then I don't want to tell you what because I'm too lazy to think of a good story.
Yeah, I didn't mind this one.
It's not so important. Like, honestly speaking, like, who cares? But it just felt like lazy writing again.
I thought the point was to show the apocalypse is just terrible and everybody suffers.
But we don't know if this happened to him during the apocalypse or before. Like,
I thought it was implied that it was during the apocalypse. Like both, I guess.
Not at all. Like, it's like we have no idea.
I didn't mind it. Yeah.
Okay. I take that back. At least, they talk about it and then he says, I don't want to talk about it. Because and I will talk about this in the next book because one of the things that made me angry this morning in the shower is two characters where one should have told the story to the other and didn't, and we have no fucking clue why they never talked about this thing at all.
Yeah. This one I felt like had a point and was wrapped up as opposed to children leaving to die and we don't know, and like magical swords never being used and all those. I think this one made sense, but we don't have even like the mental capacity to listen to more horrible things, so okay.
I guess. Okay.
I'm more angry for like a lot happened in this book, but not things that I wanted to happen. Like this confrontation on the wasteland, it didn't have to be there at all. Like he joined them, and it was a lot of, I think maybe 3 chapters of them just walking. So the only thing I got out of it was the apocalypse is happening, and I finally feel horrible about the people in the apocalypse, and that's it. And I think a bunch of space was wasted in the book that could have been used to flesh out the Stone Eaters or something.
Yes.
So they reunite and they finally reach Rennes, which I don't know how to pronounce, Rennes, something. It's a city where the army came from, and Esun remotely stoned them to death, like made them into stone, turned them into stone. And they get into the city and they found all these statues of people being stoned. And at first they're like awkward about it and they can't like look at them, and then they start like playing and making jokes about them, which is very awkward. And they just find all this food and they finally eat and they survive and everything's great. And the only thing we're left with is the resolution of the whole story. So we get a bunch of more background about the Sil Energist, how they're building this engine, and how the original tuners, which are the magic children who eventually will become Stone Eaters, are plotting to destroy the engine and all the people because they find out that they will be just a part of a machine plugged in and they couldn't do anything, and so they like rebel and they want to destroy everything. Is that correct?
Not exactly. So, no, they found out that the Nies, so the people who were subject to like this extreme racism and essentially genocide, they were put next to the obelisks to basically feed them with their magic to grow the obelisks. First I found out that, again, the obelisks were made essentially by enslaving the Nies. And second, that those of them who had already been dismissed basically had become part of these like energy feeders. And they would also be that, like after they complete this mission, they would be dismissed because they're just tools to Sil Energists. And so after they are used for the scope, which is to activate the plutonic engine, which by the way, like that's also kind of a poor choice of word.
It's
like in this book, like 90% of the names and things are super original and cool, and then sometimes there are a few things which are like, what the fuck? Oh, this thing is called magic, or this thing is called like plutonic engine.
It's not even like all these things. It's all over the place. Like
yeah. I mean, plutonic engine sounds like a thing that elementary school child would come up with. Let's be honest. Like, Pluto, cool, plutonic engine. Anyway, what they wanted to do is have a very light version of the apocalypse. Like, they wanted to destroy essentially magic generators of the whole world so that still Anagis would be without magic. So they wouldn't directly kill anyone. They would just kind of like reset the world.
So they want to do that because they're ostracized and they don't like being used?
Yeah, and they basically realize that there's something wrong with the Anagis society.
So that's coming back to the theme of racism that's trying to show how it started, because they have designed these people, genetically engineered them. They don't really go into it, but that's supposed to play on this whole theme of this trilogy, I felt like.
Yeah.
So they decide to just destroy it, like you said, but Father Earth is like, I'm not having any of this. I'm gonna take control over this network of superpowered obelisks.
Yeah, he says like, what's up with this small apocalypse just like destroying the energy? No. Let's destroy the continent. That's much more fun.
So while they start this plutonic engine, Father Earth plugs in with his super force and starts like messing with it, but the children are still like resisting it, and then they just all blows into oblivion, and it's implied that it made a hole in the moon or something.
Yes.
Oh yeah, we didn't even say that the plutonium engine is on the moon.
Not the plutonic engine is like made by the obelisks, but like the activation is on the moon.
So they travel to the moon, to activate it.
Yeah, they went to the moon, which okay.
Mm-hmm. So finally they went into space. I was waiting for this, but it doesn't matter at all. So Father Earth doesn't like you messing with his moons, and he gets a rage of fit quit, rage quit. He's like, just explode this, and he just propels moon into space, just blows it all up. And this super energetic, super powered magical explosion, I don't understand how, but turns the people into Stone Eaters?
No, he turns the people into Stone Eaters because he says it's kind of like his revenge.
Oh, okay.
Well, this is kind of like the weird passages where, because first it says that Father Earth didn't really distinguish between people, and he was like, well, I don't care that the tuners are just like these, like they're being used by Silanages. Like, to me, all humans are the same, because I'm a planet and so I can't distinguish humans. But then they say that maybe he understood that, so he decided to punish them instead of killing them, to make them into Stone Eaters, so that they would have to live forever with the, with the heaviness of their sins. Yeah, also, this accident is when the Guardians are created, because there was a stone which was taken from the core of the Earth, which shatters and goes into the bodies of the people there, which become the first generation of Guardians. Okay, and this is like the point of the lazy writing I was talking about before, because Hoa says that they were on the moon, and then they came back to Earth, and he literally says, I have no memory of how that happened, which is basically saying, like, there is no good explanation for this, so I'm just going to say that he doesn't remember.
This part.
And that's fine. Yeah, and I can be okay with it, like, fine, whatever, but how did the Guardians get back to Earth?
Yeah, I don't know. It's all weird. They have this vehicle that flies into space to the moon. How does that work? And, yeah.
Yeah, but the vehicle works. Like, there is a hole in the moon, and the moon is like, flew away, and then they came back to Earth.
Okay, the Stone Eaters are super magic creatures who can move through the Earth, and
I can understand about the Stone Eaters. Like, I can be okay, they're immortal and whatnot, but like, the Guardians are like still humans. They're super powerful humans, but they're humans.
Like, okay, so please just pick up these Guardians, my Stone Eaters, and just teleport them here. Okay, bye. Thanks. Because they do that in the story too. So I imagine if they can fly through Earth and stone, they can just take somebody and fly him through space. Why not? It's like, I'm willing to give it a pass.
I don't know.
Maybe Father Earth is just like superpower transporting them himself, because I don't know, he can do anything he wants. He's Father Earth.
He can't stop the moon, but
this is very ambiguous and weird, and it's good it's dead, and not explained more, because it would have been bad. Like the Father Earth thing is not talked about at all, and then a little bit cool things happen, and then not talked about at all. And I like it that way, because that's the only way it could be cool.
I mean, it's the safe way to play it, definitely.
So to end this story, I would like to ask you a bunch of questions because I apparently missed a bunch of stuff. So we have this ancient society of advanced technological power that studies engine. Father doesn't like it. It explodes. So then we have Team ABC. So Team A, so the problem is
Team A, B, C, D. There are 4 teams.
Okay, 4 teams. But so the moon is that's flown off the orbit and it's flying away from Earth and close, and that's what's causing all these earthquakes and all these seasons, and it's called the shattering, and that's why this apocalypse is happening. And nobody likes this. And different people wants to solve it in different ways. So Team A, let's start with the most positive team. They just want to put the moon back into orbit. That's what Alabaster told Esun, the mom. So they want to catch the moon and put it back into orbit and stop the seasons, and everything's gonna be fine and dandy. Nobody's getting killed. So that's Team A. Alabaster is on this team. Esun is on this team, and some Stone Eaters are on this team, including Hoa. So Team B, they just wanna fuck it. That's Steel and Nasun. They're like, well, we're fed up with this. I don't care about all these people. All of you are idiots. I hate racism, and this is just going to hell. Let's crush the moon into Earth and kill everything. So they wanna use the gate of obelisks, the obelisk gate, to push the moon down and have it crash into Earth and kill everything.
Yes.
Which Father Earth is feeling how about this?
He doesn't want that. That's why he controls Shafa, so that Nasun would have a reason not to. He essentially says, "Oh, Shafa will live. If you kill me, so if you kill the planet, then Shafa, you are also killing Shafa." Okay,
I want that, but half of the Stone Eaters, they also want this. Why do they want that? Like, are they just bored?
Because Steele's reasoning is, I lived for 40,000 years. I stopped remembering who I was and everything else.
Yeah, they're just bored.
Yeah. Well, more than bored, like,
existential crisis.
He just wants to die. Yeah.
Yes, so that kind of makes sense. So Team A, Team B. Team C, so Father Earth. So he wants just peace and quiet. And leave me alone, you bastards.
No, he wants the moon back. He wants the moon back, and he wants to destroy the humans.
So he wants people dead and the moon back.
Yeah.
And Stone Eaters don't bother him because he made them, I guess?
No, they fight against the Stone Eaters. Like, the Stone Eaters were his enemies. Okay, before we go to Team D, this is one of the things that I really, really, really wish it was explored more, because Steele says that the Stone Eaters essentially have been alive for 40,000 years. Okay. Hoa mentioned several times that there are different factions within the Stone Eaters. They fought, they have different goals, they had rivalries and friendships and everything else. He says that even Amethyst, so Gaewa, who's the Stone Eater who helped Alabaster, and so who's also on Team 1, Team A, she also was his rival and enemy at one point. Okay? But then, it's never explained what the Stone Eaters did in the 40,000 years. It's clear that they had these factions, and so they never united against Father Earth or everything else, or like to accomplish something, but...
That's weird, yes.
What were they doing exactly? And this connects to one of those things that it's never explained, which I was really, really looking forward to know. And look, I don't want to complain too much. It's not a big thing. It's not in there, whatever. But if you remember Hoa, the first time he appears, he was inside the ruby, right?
Yeah, I was about to ask about that.
And he says, because he fucked with the wrong Roga. Fine. So I guess, he spent there, like, we're talking about, like, he spent there, like, tens of thousands of years. So not a short time, like a very long time. Fine. We don't know anything about that. Like, he never mentions, like, what happened.
Yes.
Why?
Exactly my question, and yes. Yeah, so what's the Team D about? I don't even know.
Okay, so there are Team D and Team DA. Okay?
Okay.
So, again, this is something I really wish it was explored more. Team D are the Guardians who are not under Father Earth's control. Because the first Guardians were completely under Father Earth's control. But then the book says that, well, Hoa says that, Father Earth didn't consider the fact that humans' will was harder to control than the obelisks. So essentially, starting from the second generation of Guardians, they were able to retain some of their will. And they formed this group, the Guardians, to essentially become the grey eminence of the world. They started to influence the world. They started to talk about origins and how they were bad and everything else. And, they started to influence everything that happened throughout the history. of the continent. Team DA are the Jimenez leadership families, including like the first Jimenez emperor, because it was said that when Jimenez was founded, it was founded around one of the sockets for the obelisks, which was considered a cursed place. And the reason why it was considered a cursed place, because Silanagists knew that Father Earth essentially could control you if you went too close to the metal things inside the obelisk socket. It is also said that essentially the Jimenez leadership families knew some of the history before, like the Silanagist history, and then they changed stone lore to remove all of the positive points about origins and all of the references to Silanagists. In other words, the Jimenez leadership families were kind of like the descendants of the Silanagist people, those who retained the Silanagist legacy, so to speak. It is also kind of explained that the first Sunset Empire, so the emperor at the beginning was really important and powerful and so on, and then one of the emperor accused the Guardians, and since then the emperors essentially became irrelevant, so the Guardians removed the emperor. So the reason why I say it's for Team 4A is because they were like the Jimenez leadership family and the Sansa Empire was working kind of like under the Guardians, like the Guardians again were the Grey Eminence, but at the same time they were not directly controlled by the Guardians, so sometimes there was some conflict. Yeah, that would be the fourth thing.
Okay, so we didn't say that we find out where the Guardians go during the season, which is like an underground bunker with like coffins, and the Guardians are like robots stuck in these slots in the wall, and that's where they hibernate.
Yeah.
Well, Father Earth controls them with the core stone in their head.
Well, those are the Guardians who are not under Father Earth's control. Like they are retaining their will. They are not the contaminated ones.
So by contaminated,
it means like they are under Father Earth's control, because like the others aren't. That was clearly explained from the first book. When Shafa kills another Guardian and takes her core stone out, is because she becomes contaminated. And Shafa also says that after he becomes like a zombie, he says he can't go back to Fulcrum because the other Ganzians will kill him because he has become contaminated. Which means, yeah, they're receiving power from him, but they are not under his control.
I thought he was just controlling all of them, and there was like different levels of how much he controls them, that's all.
I mean, yes and no, because the Guardians, like, from what Shafa says, the Guardians are actually trying to make humanity survive. Under their control, but to make humanity survive, because they say that, he says that the Guardians' goal is not to exterminate Origins. He says that actually they made a mistake because they made people hate Origins too much, and they are at risk of being, like, completely killed, even though they are supposed to survive, because they are needed for the survival of humanity. So
I thought the whole reason was that Father Earth is trying to contain the Origins, which are potentially dangerous to him, by controlling the Guardians.
No, because otherwise Shafa would say like we would just need to exterminate all of the Origins. But he says that actually he says that they have a gift, and which is needed to survive. And also one of the, you know how at the end of every chapter there is, well, almost every chapter there is like that short piece of like quote from somewhere. And for the third book, most of it is collections of stories of Origins stopping potential disasters. And the guy who is doing these researches gets stopped by the Guardians. Like the Guardians go to the university and say, you need to stop. Like, you have to stop this guy. Because essentially it was proving that Origins could stop the seasons much more often. Because again, the Guardians don't want people to understand that the Origins are needed. They know they're needed, but they don't want people to understand that.
Okay, I'm a little confused, but so Guardians, they live very long because they get power from Father Earth, and the core stone is implanted in them by whom?
By other Guardians.
And the first Guardians were made by Father Earth?
Yes.
And then they somehow, so why aren't they fully in control? Like,
so because it says that, so that part, like, it's very, very rushed. So I also had to kind of reread the same page a few times to completely understand what it was being said. Because it's explained in a very, very poor way, I think. The people at the base on the moon, they got a shred of the big stone which was taken from the core of the moon, which was on inside the moon base. And they became the first Guardians because Father Earth wanted to use that to control humans. And that's fine. somehow they got back to Earth. Like, this is not explained how.
Yeah.
They went to Core Point and they built Warrant, which was built by an Origin. I don't know who or why, but yeah, anyway, it was built by an Origin. And there they had the technology to make new Guardians. Okay? And they decided to start making new Guardians. The problem, it says there that Father Earth made a mistake because he underestimated how difficult it is to control the human will. So essentially, these Guardians, they started to be able to retain their will, although they are under constant attack, so to speak, from Father Earth. So that if they lose control, then, they become like contaminated.
Okay, thank you for explaining. That clears it out for me. So the only thing I'm not sure about is they're hibernating while the world is ending because they don't know. It's just there like waiting. Oblivious.
There are two reasons for that. The first one is Shafa says that Guardians are not so useful during a season. So again, they want humanity to survive, so they wouldn't. Yeah, it wouldn't be good for them to stay there because it would decrease the probability of humanity surviving. And second, because if you remember, Guardians need to get their silver from Origins, right? If they don't get their silver, they start to go crazy because Father Earth, because they need that silver to kind of as a relief for the pain of their core stone. So if they can get their silver, they go crazy, and at that point they would start killing everyone. Because there are no Origins.
By silver, follow me is magic, by the way.
Yeah, silver isn't. Because there are no Origins inside the communities during 5th season, then they wouldn't be able to get any silver, and so they would go crazy. So that's why they go to Warrant. Yeah. Okay,
thank you. So I understand. I completely missed all of this Guardian stuff. Yeah. So thank you so much. It explained it very well. Thanks so much for clarifying. Makes much more sense. And we get to the conclusion. Does the world end?
Wait. Before we get to the end, there's maybe my favorite chapter in the whole book, if not the whole trilogy.
Oh, okay. You want to say that? Okay, go ahead.
So there is this chapter. This is probably the only Essen chapter I really like. Okay. So this is essentially the night before the storm chapter. So Essen knows that the next day she will go to Core Point and she has to catch the moon. So she has been approached by different people who want to go with her. So Dana wants to go with her because she's a lorist and blah, blah, blah. She wants to report the history in the making. Tonki wants to go there because she's a scientist and she has been studying obelisks her whole life. So she wants to see Core Point. Jarka, or however you pronounce her name, wants to go there because she's in love with Tonki and so she doesn't want to abandon her, I guess. Lerna wants to go there because he loves Essen, even though it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, we completely skipped that. I was expecting you to announce that Dr. Friendzone...
Yeah, Dr. Friendzone not only finally sleeps with Essen after she has lost a boob and an arm, but...
Which, that was hilarious, how Hoa ate her boob, which was like... I wrote down the quote that so every time we didn't say that every time they use the magic, if they use it like on a different level,
if they use the obelisk gate,
simply, they start turning into stone.
Yeah, if they use the obelisk gate, that's what happens.
And that's what was happening in the previous books. To Alabaster, he was turning into stone, and the stone eaters eat the stone parts so people can move easier around because it's too heavy. Yeah, so long story short, Hoa eats Nasun's boob. And Nasun's like, I am weirdly proud that I could feed people in more ways than one with my boob. And I was like, what? What are you saying?
Anyway, something like we didn't mention because it was kind of strange is the chapter where Hoa brings Essen to Jekiti and she finds Jije's corpse. And after that, she kind of accepts that she can let go of Nasun and she really wants to devote herself to...
I like those parts.
Yeah, I like that chapter. It was kind of surprising. But then I really like this chapter because... So she is like, okay, I'm going on this mission, which is basically a suicide mission. And, like all of these people want to come, but should I bring them with me? Like, it's kind of a suicide mission and they're my friends. I don't want them to die and blah, blah, blah. At the end of the chapter, she has a nice, heartwarming confrontation with all of them and, assessing the determination to go and who wants to go, who can't go, and so on. Like Ika can't go and so on. But before that, there is this nice chapter where finally, like she's 44 in this chapter. And finally she has this realization that, I've been kind of a bitch my whole life. Maybe it's kind of the time to drop the act and I don't need to treat everyone like shit, and I don't need to get angry for everything. I don't need to, fight or fright like my whole life. Which again, okay, I can understand because of whatever happened in her life. It makes sense. But even in Meof, where she was perfectly accepted, like she had absolutely no danger, she was still acting like that. With Hannah Buster, she was always acting like that. And finally she has like, well, I
wrote down a bunch of...
Yeah. She has this moment where she's like, maybe I should... She says, I should drop the like Solo Wolf Revenger or something like that, like the Lonely Revenger act or something like that. And I was like, finally, like this felt like such a good character moment, and I really, really liked it. It was by far my favorite chapter of the book, and maybe my favorite chapter of the trilogy, just because, like, again, we talked about how much we hated Essen and how annoying she was. This was like the moment where it's like, okay, as annoying as she was, there is like a self-realization. And as an extremely annoying person myself, I always appreciate, the fact that some characters and some people can reach this awareness and they're able to kind of like overcome their edginess.
Yes, there was a good character arc, and I really like this part too. Once again, I have to say, the more we talk about it, the more I like it. So it's a good story. And the character arc is great. This moment also resonated with me. So to wrap this up, let's say what happened at the end.
Yes.
Do you want to say, or should I?
So, Essen gets there while Nassen is getting ready to smash the moon into the earth. Essen goes there and tries to use the Tolk no Jutsu. It's a Naruto reference. It's like trying to use the main character's superpower, which is talking villains into stop doing their villainous things.
I see now.
Anyway, she tries to do that, but Nassen is throwing a fit. So she's like, no, I'm not doing my homework. I'm not cleaning my room. I'm going to the game center and I'm playing Mario Kart.
And I like this confrontation, how it was...
Yeah, it was a nice confrontation. Again,
written.
I liked, as you said before, I liked that she didn't go, like the author didn't go for the action-packed ending, but rather for more of a sentimental ending. In the end, Essen manages to convince Nassen by essentially give up. She says, you really want to do this, you really want to turn everyone into Stone Eaters, because then Nassen has changed her plans, but I really want to turn everyone into Stone Eaters. You know what? I give up. That's okay. You can play Mario Kart. No need to do your homework. It's okay. And as she does that, she dies crying, and Nassen was like, well, I mean, I made my mother cry. That's kind of bad. So she decides to not destroy the world and go along with what Essence was planning to do, which is to restore the moon.
The more I think about it, the more I like it, because first of all, no action nonsense. Second of all, the confrontation wasn't a shouting argument, but them hardly saying anything, which felt very real to me.
Yeah. We didn't say that Dr. Frenson has died. He's the only one who died.
Yeah, the Dr. Frenson,
poor bastard. Yeah,
really. He's definitely got the short end of the stick. For those who haven't read it, he dies while they're speeding through the earth, and like Stone Eaters are attacking them underground, and that's okay. But I want to say that I really liked that the ending was kind of a sentimental real ending, in the sense that the parent did the most difficult thing and the parent can do, like we talked about on the second episode of this podcast, when the father couldn't like let go and he kept like forcing himself on the son in the short story we read. Listen to our second episode, The Changed Man. And it's the most difficult thing in the parent's life to let go. And she let go, and I was like, thank you. This is like, yeah, this is the right choice. Like, she made the right choice, and I didn't expect it at all. I thought it would go down differently. With the same result, mind you, but I didn't think that this is how it would go down.
Exactly. I didn't expect to have a bad ending, honestly speaking. But, yeah, I really liked that. And then after this, there was the final confrontation where, like, it shows that Nassen still doesn't believe that the world will become good, which is good. Like, I don't like, again, when you have this happy ending and then everything is magically solved. Like, it's nice that she still thinks, like, oh, you know, maybe the world will be shit. We still don't know. And Essen becomes a Stone Eater, which, again, was kind of expected. And so that's why the story was in the second person, because it was Hoa talking to Essen the whole time.
Yeah, so maybe that's the last thing we can mention, that people who are turned into Stone Eaters, they forget everything and they're like revived, resurrected, and they rebooted. It's also stupid how the Obelisk network was like, yes, no, execute. Like, let's not even talk about that. That was another one of those like random things in this book. I was like, well, anyway, I just wanted to say that because it's so ridiculous. Like, the people have turned into Stone Eaters, so they don't talk about how that happens or how it happened in the first place. Like I mean, like the technical details of it. And then there is like a different way you can turn into a Stone Eater. And that means a different Stone Eater eats you and then shits you out and you're a Stone Eater.
It's not clear, but Hoa says that they have learned how to do it throughout the millennia. Yeah,
and they talk about how they have their needs and how they have to eat people who ever turned into stone because, and then if they do it perfectly, correctly, and carefully, they can, like, by eating them, resurrect them.
Well,
which means
not everyone. Only those who become stone because they have used the obelisk gate. Like people like Jija who have become stone. Because, like, he explains again. This is kind of poorly explained. I only understood it at the end. It says that when they are turned into stone, like Jija, it says that the magic is kind of reassembling the matter. Like, they're atoms at random, and so they become stones. But in the case of, like, Essen or Alabaster, what happens is that when they use so much magic, essentially, for whatever reason, all of their kind of like all of their atoms, or however you want to explain it, align. And after they align, that's why every time they use magic, they become stone, because at that point they become kind of like receptive to whatever's happening. So he also says that Nassen will never be able to use orogeny again, because if she does, then she will turn into stone. One thing that I was thinking about is, several times Hoa says that Nassen is part of you intended as Essen. And in the end we find out that Hoa also ate Nassen's end, because Nassen's end has turned into stone, right? So one of the things I was thinking is, so what you're saying is maybe this was not like a metaphor in the sense that, you know, the daughter is a fragment of the mother, but I mean, it was also a metaphor, but it was also literally because he ate Nassen's end and he used Nassen's end together with the rest of Essen's body to make Stone Eater Essen. That's what I thought.
Oh, okay.
But he also says that Shafa is a fragment of her. But does that mean he ate Shafa? But Shafa didn't turn into stone, so... Yeah, I didn't pay much attention to that part, that comment. The other thing would be connecting back to what I was saying before, which is, if most of the origins are essentially descendants of Kalenli, and especially Essen, is said that she resembles a lot Kalenli, so it's kind of like assumed that, probably she's a very, 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 very far descendant. If Shafa is, according to the theory I explained before, Kalenli's son, then essentially maybe that's why they are kind of like related, very, very distantly related.
It's a June reference somewhere in there.
Yeah, I guess so.
Never mind. Well, so I like it more. Thanks for explaining. I missed a bunch of things that you cleared out. I was confused about Team
okay.
ABCD.
No problem.
So thanks for clarifying. And I was confused about the Guardians. So you explained that. I missed that. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And also the character arc. Now that I think about it more, yeah. So it grew on me. I like. I appreciate it very much. Not to repeat myself, that it's more of a woman's point of view.
That's true. I would say this. I liked the third book more than the second, and now that we're talking about it, as you said, maybe I liked it a little bit more. But, as we will talk about in the fourth episode, there were things I really liked about this trilogy, but also
yes.
things that made me really angry.
Yes. This book, even though I hated the still anagist, like slow parts, it still gave me a break, and that's what I meant with the pace. It was like kind of an interesting dynamic with the other parts. Other storylines were kind of action-packed, and there was like a break in the still anagist. So it kind of worked for me to like take a break from what was happening in the other places. So that's what I meant by the pacing working for me.
I mean, that's a fair point.
So let's stop here because we've already been talking for like 2 hours.
Yes.
And we'd like to invite you, if you're still listening, to the next episode where we're gonna look at it as a trilogy, mostly for people who wanna like hear about this as a whole, if they actually wanna get into this, and then in the spoiler part to just discuss more things because we have obviously much more to say. And this is too long already, and we wanna look at like our favorite and most hated moments and what we miss and don't miss, and what some more details about the author and stuff like that. But let's stop for now. I think we've said enough. Thanks so much for the analysis and explanation, and you always have all the information. So I'm really thankful because I don't have the mental capacity to put all the dots together and keep all the history in my mind. I completely forgot like all the other stuff from the other books that you brought up, so that's great that you remember.
No problems.
So thanks. Right, anything you want to say before we stop?
Genocide is bad.
Okay, we'll talk about the themes more in the next episode. So genocide is bad, and see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye. So the last book, 36 creativity points. Pretty good. I think there's a lot of things we liked a lot about this and a lot of things we didn't like about this, and I think we sorted it out in our heads after a while because it's been a while since we read this. So that's why we decided to do a roundup as the trilogy, the whole trilogy as a whole. So that's coming up on the next episode. Non-spoiler impressions about the whole thing. And then our top 5 and top worst. It was a really fun discussion. Stick with us to the very end, where the world ends and we end the discussion about the Broken Earth trilogy.